Texas Democrats have temporarily prevented their state's House of Representatives from redrawing their congressional map. They left the state to block a vote on the Republican-led redistricting plan. Today, the Texas State House approved a motion to issue civil arrest warrants for those Democrats who skipped the special session. So this means they could be tracked down and returned by warrant. California's Democratic leaders and state lawmakers are quickly moving to change the maps here to try to send more Democrats to Congress.
Yeah, this all happening now as one local Republican congressman is attempting to stop both Texas and California from doing any of this. And Ashley Zavala is here right now with an update on the debate that's breaking out here in California. Ash?
Golston, as Texas Democrats are holed up in other states now, California Democrats are plowing ahead with their plan to try to redraw congressional lines if Texas ends up passing their new maps. California leaders want voters this November to upend the state's independent redistricting process and allow the state's Democratic state lawmakers to draw lines for the first time in 2 decades. Voters took away that power back in 2008. It's to be seen how transparent this process will be in California. And while the ball is basically entirely in the California legislature's court, the governor is doing all of the talking. This small plane flew over Sacramento Monday with this message: mess with Texas.
Whatever they are doing will be neutered here in the state of California.
Governor Gavin Newsom gathering up support among Democrats in Congress and at the state capitol to do just that. But California's Democratic legislative leaders are not ready to talk about it on camera just yet. Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas, State Senate Pro Tem Mike McGuire, the Elections Committee chairs State Senator Sabrina Cervantes and Assemblymember Gail Pellerin denied repeated requests for interviews over the last several days. But sources tell KCRA3 following late closed-door meetings in the State Senate and Assembly Sunday night, Democratic state lawmakers appear ready to back the governor. He's directing them to quickly draw maps and write a November ballot initiative within a matter of days when they get back to Sacramento later this month. The governor says this is all in response to President Trump.
We're not drawing lines to draw lines. We're holding the line on democracy, on the rule of law, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty.
I don't love what's happening in Texas either.
Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley on Monday announced he's introducing a bill in Washington, D.C. to prohibit mid-decade redistricting like this nationwide. It would invalidate maps drawn between now and 2030. That includes Texas and California.
That's why I've introduced a bill that applies to every state and is designed, whether it's a red state or a blue state, to just bring some sanity to the situation here. Say, let's take a deep breath. Let's get on with the things that really matter to the country rather than spending all of this time and attention and money on redistricting when it's not supposed to be happening.
Texas's maps are ready for votes. Critics have said they were drawn in a back room, proposed within days, and not given enough time for public comment. I asked the governor how on such a tight timeline it would be any different in California.
How can you guarantee the process here won't be exactly the same as it was in that state?
One has nothing to do with the other. Forgive me. The ultimate test of transparency is what's in the voting pamphlet. The ultimate test of transparency is what voters will decide on. Full light of day, completely public. They will have the opportunity to review those maps. They'll have ample opportunity to do just that, and it will be in their ballot box, and they'll make that determination. That is in stark contrast.
California lawmakers return to Sacramento on August 18th. I'm hearing talk already that their debate and their votes on this would be wrapped up by the end of that week, basically August 22nd, so that the Secretary of State can get going on that November 4th special election.
Yeah, tight timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we heard him talk about the voting pamphlet. So you were the first to report about the polling and the possible ballot question that the governor might be using here. So what they provided to lawmakers. So what are you hearing about that?
Right. At this point, my sources shared screenshots of that polling that showed 52% of California voters would approve of the ballot measure to approve the maps and temporarily change the redistricting process based on the way the governor's team has the question written, which what we have seen before getting to the maps and the change immediately declares support for the independent redistricting process. Critics say that it's probably already confusing to you. It may be confusing to voters. You can see that question and polling on our website right now on this web story. We should point out As of this hour, Democratic state lawmakers have not seen maps yet. The governor claims he has not yet seen maps, but I am hearing that California congressional Democrats and consultants have been working on those maps for the last few days. There was talk that they may be finalized by tonight. I know that there's talk that some Democrats would like to eliminate 5 Republicans from California's congressional delegation. Others would like 7. All of this is being discussed in real time. We will keep you updated.
And as they're also trying to see exactly what's going on in Texas and trying to balance that out.
Exactly.
So it's really,
And potentially other states.
True.
Yeah.
Ashley, thank you.
Yeah.